Hey everyone, welcome to the Canine Culture Podcast, where we talk about everything dog. Q&As with veterinarian professionals, rescue operators, everyday topics. We cover everything dog on this podcast. So make sure you subscribe to the Canine Culture Podcast on your favorite podcast platform, and make sure you're following us on social media on both Instagram and Facebook. Thanks again for listening. Now here's that next episode. Hey everyone, welcome to episode 3 of the Canine Culture Podcast. We have a special guest today. Her name is Tami, and she runs a rescue in Jacksonville, Florida called Papillon Pals. Welcome to the show, Tami.
Thank you for having me.
So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I am an older lady who is married to an amazing husband and decided that I wanted to start contributing and being the change in the world. So I decided to foster dogs a few years ago, and through fostering it, I decided, this is where my heart is. And I have 2 boys, and they've grown and left the nest, and, it just seems to be a good thing to do with my time.
And tell us about Papillon Pals. So for anyone that doesn't know, Papillon Pals is here in Jacksonville, Florida, and it's not just Papillons. I actually adopted a Pomeranian from Papillon Pals. So tell us a little bit about the organization.
Well, Papillon Pals was founded by Linda Lucas, and we became tax exempt in 2005. The rescue originally was Papillons strictly, but they realized that there was a need to take in other small dogs. So we typically try to stay below 15 pounds. Now, granted, we've gone 18, 20, 22, but typically we try to stay small. The rescue has done well over, I'd say, 800 dogs since 2005. We are small. We stay small. We're basically in Florida. We adopt out to Florida. I have increased our adoption radius quite a bit, as long as I can drive up there and back. But it's just a little organization, and we do our part, to be the change.
And what a lot of people might not know is Tami does this from her house. So her house is the end all be all, the sanctuary. She has it set up so the dogs are super comfortable. They live like family. And I don't know the answer to this. How many fosters do you have?
Currently, we have 8 fosters in the house, and we have 3 of our own dogs. We try to keep our limit below 11, just because that seems to be the max number that we can handle without mistakes or accidents. You deal with a lot of different personalities. Ideally, 8 is a good number, but 11, we've gone up to 13, and that was a little chaotic. We do it out of the house. The house is not stylish. It's functional. We totally ripped out all the carpet and put in porcelain tile because pee happens. Pee happens a lot.
Pee happens a lot. Pee happens at my house, and I only have 3. So you said you got started in rescue work by fostering. So how did that kind of come about? Did you already own some dogs, or how did you start fostering other dogs?
Well, we got a little Papillon. We named him Loki back in, 13 years ago, and decided we loved the breed. My husband sent me an email back in 2012 that included an event that was going to be not the mega adoption event, but the big adoption events that was hosted by Best Friends Society that's out in Utah, that was going to be located right next to where I work. So I thought, let's check it out. And unbeknown to him that I did it from start to finish. I was there to set up that Thursday, started off Friday, and by Sunday, there were a couple dogs that I had attached myself to that I needed to make sure were adopted out. So, of course, I was advocating for them. Through that event, I met some very amazing women, and we formed a group called Wolfpack. That Wolfpack, we got together once a month, and we decided that We wanted to do things for our, rescues and shelters in the area. We formed a group called Ladies. It's an acronym that stands for Loving All Dogs in Every Shelter. We would pick a rescue or a shelter that needed us, either through volunteering or raising funds. Through those events, there was 2 events that I had hosted. One was one at a bar, imagine that, and we had 8 local rescues come out. We had a band, we had cornhole tournaments. It was a fun event, and one of the rescues there was Papillon Pals. Through that, I submitted an application and I became a foster in spring of 2014.
Oh, wow. Is Ladies still around?
Ladies is still around, but it's not as active.
Okay.
I still keep contact with a lot of the people that I met through there. They still contribute. They still donate. They still, we can bounce ideas off of them. They've all kind of separated in different ways, but they still are involved in rescue.
Okay. That's awesome. So what does a day-to-day look like for you operating a rescue from your home, from waking up to going to bed? I know every day is a little bit different, but what's your average day look like?
Well, I think shit show is probably not an appropriate thing, but it's because we're small and because we don't do mega numbers like a lot of the rescues. It looks like a typical house would, with multiple dogs plus a few more. Typically, you'll have that 1 or 2 that wants to wake up because they can't hold it. And of course, then you have to let all of them out at 3 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
You typically try to go back to bed. You have a lot of cheerleaders when it's breakfast and dinner time. They all have to cheer you on. Some of them knowing why they're cheering you on, others just joining in the chorus because when we've taken in newbies, we try to schedule the vet appointments right off the bat so that we have a blueprint of what is going on with them. We try to delegate our times equally, but sometimes you can't because some require a little bit more. There's a lot of going outside. There's a lot of trying to work on a routine for housebreaking. There's a lot of observing the dogs to see what their fears are, what their triggers might be, what their medical issues might be. Because when they first come in, they don't really show you what could be wrong because they're holding it all inside. A lot of animals are very stoic and don't let you know that they're in pain, or you may not notice that they have a urinary tract infection or things like that. So you really try to just pay attention to what's going on with the new ones. You try to make sure that there's no altercations. And then we look forward to bedtime at my house. 8:30 can't come soon enough. So we use a lot of keywords, and we encourage them all to go into either the bed that they sleep with me. Some will go into little pens because they don't want to go into a crate. Some are crate trained. We do try to crate train most of them just because adopters like having that. And I would rather lose the sleep the first few nights getting them crate trained so that the adopter can decide if they want to go that route or not and make it at least a little bit easier for them there.
So I want to go back to potty training because I know a lot of these dogs, regardless of age, they're not potty trained. Do you let the dogs out on a set schedule, or do you have like a certain number of hours, or how do you kind of go about that?
I try to let them out at least every couple of hours. There are times that, if one happens to go to the door, I use a lot of key words. Want to go potty. Most of them will just go outside just because, the door's open. So as much as I would like to say that, yes, it's every 2 hours, you do have a few that come in that are potty trained and they go to the door. So we try to focus on the behavior and what happens with the behavior of when they go to the door. We have some that are pee-pad trained by saying that they think every rug in the house is a pee-pad. So we don't have many rugs in the house. And we try to encourage them to use a pee-pad and move it closer to the door. So potty training, as nice as it is, it's not our main focus. It's more of a medical, more of a behavioral, but we do try to get them as close to potty trained as possible before adopting out.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So we got Stony from Papillon Pals from Tami, and she's a senior. But she was not potty trained because she had lived in a cage her entire life. But she actually learned pretty quickly what to do, when to do it. She told us when she had to go out. And now we have Napoleon. He's only 2, but he's very developmentally behind. He also pretty much lived in a cage, drugged up for the first 2 years of his life. So he's not comprehending potty training at all. And if he goes outside, he gets distracted. He eats dirt, he eats sticks, everything but go to the bathroom. So when he comes in, it's like, oh yeah, I have to go. So that is one thing we're kind of struggling with as far as potty training. And I have heard try to get them on a schedule as far as taking them out at a certain time. And unfortunately, that has not worked for us. So we've tried the keywords, we've tried all of that with Napoleon, and we are still struggling with it. And we are in month 5 or 6.
Right.
So we're hoping to have a breakthrough. So if you ever get a dog from a rescue and they say they're potty trained, maybe they were potty trained in those circumstances, but they might not be at your house. And we could probably talk about that in a little bit, because we're going to talk a little bit about what it looks like to rescue a dog and all of that. But the moral of this story is patience.
Yes. And the one thing also, remember, Stony was living in a home that had multiple other dogs, and the home was nothing but pee and poop everywhere. So I think she appreciates living in a clean environment. And so because she's learned, if I do my business outside, my place stays clean. So that could be it, where unfortunately Napoleon didn't get the benefits of going outside. So he wants to eat and explore all that fun stuff.
Yeah, he's very ADHD, very. So where do most of the dogs come from that you end up taking in as a rescue?
Well, that varies. If they're Papillons, a lot of folks that are surrendering them can Google Papillon Rescue Florida, and we instantly come up. Others will come from if shelters post dogs. Any of our followers see them, they instantly either send me a message, tag me in the post. Some of the shelters, once I do pull a dog from there, I give them all my information. I've tried to reach out to a few shelters to let them know, if you can adopt them, if you need them to come in, please contact me. We've branched out and started taking other small dogs more so now. I think I have more non-Papillons than I have Papillons. Our local shelters are totally full. They know that I will take the medical. They know that I'll take the behavioral. So they reach out to me when they know that I have an opening, or I'll reach out and say, hey, what do you have? I also try to scan pet finders just to see if I can see any Papillons, Pomeranians, long-haired Chihuahuas, anything that's under 15 pounds that may benefit from coming into rescue and not being in a shelter environment.
So going back to people surrendering their Papillons, how often are you seeing that right now?
We see it quite a bit. We see it really a lot with older parents that end up in homes or pass. The family just doesn't want the dog. Either, they don't have the space. There was never any life plan talked about. The dog could have behavioral issues because the dog was never socialized, which is a big problem. A few times this past year was life situations, work situations where, they just didn't have the time to devote to them because their jobs had changed due to COVID. So instead of working from home like they were originally had been or whatever, they had to change careers, and now they were traveling. And, we have all different reasons. We took in one that the mother was going through, had breast cancer, and she had to move in with her children, and the children said, no, you cannot bring the dog. So, we tried not to be judgmental in the reason. We try to offer, say yes to, whatever we can. But owner surrenders, They are few and far between with the Papillon breed, but the majority of them are because the older folks take them in and they don't have a conversation with friends or family in regards to taking their dogs.
Okay. Yeah. And I've seen a lot of Pomeranian surrenders lately. And I feel like a lot of the Pomeranians get surrendered, whether it be because someone has a baby, and Pomeranians, they can be pretty protective of their humans. So I feel like that's normally a reason, or Pomeranians are somewhat notorious for some health issues when they get older. So it seems like, unfortunately, a lot lately, I have seen people surrendering or just disposing of their Pomeranians that are 8, 9, 10 years old. Seems to be, I don't know if it's that it's more frequent now or if we just are more aware of it with social media.
That could be it too. We see it more in our face because we follow the groups and we're trying to stay in the now as far as what is going on, who needs us, what can we do. So yes, it's more in our face now too.
Right. And that could be a good thing because now we can hopefully get ahead of it, rehome these dogs, help them not be euthanized, not be just thrown out on the streets.
The one thing that about, especially with small dogs, people think it's so cute when they do this, the little growling, the protectiveness. It's not cute. They need socialization. They need manners. They need to go out and about. They need walks. Even if you have a fenced in yard, they need to be out and about to get different smells and sights so that they're not fearful, because typically the aggressive behavior is fearfulness.
Right.
So, that is a biggie, is people think, I live in an apartment, I don't have to take my dog very far. And no, you need to introduce that dog to different personalities and sights and sounds.
Right. Yeah, we've been dealing with that with both of our rescues, just getting them around more people, more things, more dogs, more smells. And it's a challenge. It's like Stoney, she was afraid of every single human she came in contact with, and just taking her, she's traveled everywhere now. She's been to California, Oregon, Washington, Texas, Ohio, you name it, Stoney's been, and she's getting much better. She's more receptive to humans. She'll let people pick her up, especially if you have chicken. So she's definitely come around. And then Napoleon is, he's working on it. So what would you say is the most challenging part of running a rescue?
There are multiple challenges. I would say when you have that young, healthy little unicorn, you receive so many applications, so many great applications, and picking just one and having to tell the other applicants that we chose someone else, but to not discourage them from wanting to adopt. So many people, we have so many people that want to adopt, but we only have that one or two really healthy young dogs that they're looking for. So letting someone down easy is a big one. The second challenge is the limitations. You need to know that you can't save them all. It is so hard because I got myself in a pickle one time where I was the yes girl for so many, and that's when we got up to 13. Accidents happen, altercations happen, vet bills happened, and then you're constantly asking for money, and you have fights. And so you really have to know your limitations. You have to know how much time you can dedicate to each dog, the dog that you're taking in. Are you able to handle the medical, the behavioral? Do you have the resources? So yeah, those two are the biggest challenges.
Yeah. And I expect you to be the yes girl because I tag you in every small dog in Florida, Georgia.
And I try to when I see it. I'm like, okay, granted, I don't have any fosters or many, especially for the behavioral ones. So I at least try to send that to somebody that I think might be able to help if I can't.
Right. So what's the most rewarding part of running the rescue? And I'm sure there's several. Just helping the dogs every day, I'm sure, is a reward in and of itself. But what's the most rewarding part for you?
Seeing a dog that comes in from the shelter that nobody could touch or nobody could handle, and it has so many medical issues, seeing them decompress, seeing them get healthy, seeing their little heart light shine. And then just seeing the adopter just saying, this is the one, you can just see that love instantly. And then getting the updates. That is just, those updates keep us rescuers going, because sometimes, we attach to one or two that get really, really close, and saying goodbye is hard, but getting to see that they are doing so great in their homes, like Stony, getting to see her go to California, and the hiking pictures with you carrying her is just fantastic. So yes, that is definitely a huge reward.
So for people who do want to rescue, what are 3 red flags that almost automatically you're like, no, I can't adopt you. There's no way.
Okay, well, when you send an email inquiring about a dog, when you put how much and that's it, that's pretty much, you ask about the dog, take a couple minutes, use a couple other sentences, tell us about yourself, tell us what intrigued you about the dog, that, and asking questions that are in the bio. We take time to write as much information about the dog in there so you don't have to ask, so so yes, how much and how old is the dog when it's right there.
Right.
That's the big ones. Another red flag is when folks are reserved in their answers on the application, or in their emails when we reach out and ask them a couple and they give us just 1 or 2 word answers. Open up. Let us know a little bit about you. Let us know about the situation we're asking about. And finally, when they don't listen to the tips, suggestions, the disclosures on what that animal might need, we get it. You've had a dog or two, you've taken in a scared one and it shined in your, while you had it. Not all dogs are that way. We try to give you as much information that we've gathered to help make this a successful transition. Don't overtalk us. We don't need to be dominated. We're trying to hear you, but we're just trying to give you as much information as possible as well.
Right. I think a lot of people do let their ego get in the way. You see these rescue groups and people are like, well, I've had 10 dogs. I don't know why this rescue isn't giving me this dog. And it's like, well, could have been what you just said. It could have been your attitude. It could have been how you answered your questionnaire. So
Exactly.
I don't know if a lot of people rescuing understand these rescues. They're not being nosy. They could care less what you're doing with your life, but they need the information to know if you are going to be a good fit for this particular dog, because at the end of the day, they know the dog better than you do.
Correct. And after even 10 years of being in rescue, I am still learning. I am still reaching out to fellow rescuers, to vets or vet techs or trainers. I have a plethora of trainer friends that, I bounce ideas and how is this not working or what is this? So always be open to listening.
Right. So what are 3 positive attributes of an adopter where you see it and you're like, okay, green flag, this might be the one?
A wonderful vet reference is a star quality, especially when we call and offhand the receptionist is like, oh my gosh, I know them. They're fantastic. I mean, that speaks volumes. If the vet may say that you went above and beyond the annual stuff, not necessarily the chemo treatments or anything, but that you didn't decline everything forward. That's a big gold star for us. When you fill out the application, take time to elaborate a little bit on how you would correct a problem, or say, for instance, when you've taken in a previous dog and the experience that dog has brought you. Your application answers really give us a window insight to what you are like as an adopter. And we may see that personality would fit that particular dog. So that would be a bonus on there. And finally, having a realistic expectation of a rescue dog. Know that they typically were surrendered because they weren't the perfect little dog. They may come with behavioral issues. They may come with medical issues. We try to give a full disclosure of everything we know. We don't hide. I will tell you every flaw about that dog because their cuteness makes you want them. So realize that, you're going to have to put in the work, just like if you were to get a new puppy. You would have to housebreak it. You would have to train the dog. When you take in a rescue, you are taking in all the failed things that somebody else has done to this dog and rewiring. But I can assure you that they are absolutely worth it.
Right, right. So kind of piggybacking off of that, what's your advice for people who are adopting, and it might be their first rescue dog, it might be their fifth, and before you answer this, we kind of talked about this before we started recording, but I think patience is one of the most important things.
Huge.
And you might think you're patient, but let one of these little yippy dogs test you. Let them bite at you a few times. Let them pee in the house every day. And you really learn where you're at with your patience. So, what other advice do you have for people when they're rescuing a dog?
Definitely the patience. There's a 3-3-3 rule. It's 3 days, 3 weeks, 3 months. Typically, any dog that I have in rescue, we keep them for at least 30 days because they don't show us their true selves. Because they're still scared. They don't want to eat. They're still decompressing. They're still building trust. They're still waiting to be moved on to another home. So, you really just need to be completely patient with not only the dog, and you need to give the dog a chance. Be patient with the rescue themselves. I mean, so many people will say, well, I submitted an application and I didn't hear back from them. Now, mind you, I know that a lot of rescues only respond that if they chose you, which, it sucks. I can't do anything about it. All I can do is control what I'm able to do. So I do try to communicate with everybody. Sometimes when you submit an application, as soon as you see the dog, you may not get a response because I'm not even looking at that application.
Right.
I'm concerned on getting that dog better, finding out the flaws. I couldn't tell you if if you are a good candidate for this dog because I don't know this dog.
Right.
So
it's like applying for a job. You're not always going to hear back, and it sucks. And it's not intentional. It's just sometimes people are busy doing other things.
Right. Rescue is all volunteer. So, we're working, we're taking care of dogs, we're taking care of our families, we're trying to, enjoy life as well on top of doing this. So, sometimes a dog will bring in 20 to 30 applications. So a rescue doesn't have time to respond back to all of that. And then, of course, you have to deal with the disgruntled people of why. And unfortunately, that happens too. But just patience in the whole process.
Don't be a Karen. That's what she's trying to tell you guys. Just don't be a Karen. And if you don't get that reference, you should honestly Google it because it is 2022.
Yeah. There's a lot of heartbreak in rescue. But I try to make sure that could I pass my application? I try to be fair. Where before they had a certain criteria, you had to have a fenced in yard. You had to be stay at home. I try to look at it as for each dog. Does that dog need you home all the time? No, you can go work as long as you're not a worker bee or you're not a social butterfly where that dog's home alone. Sometimes when it says that it's a fenced-in yard required, perhaps that dog can't walk on a leash. We don't want you to get discouraged by the dog having so many accidents in your home. We know that dog needs to go potty, so therefore we're asking for a fenced-in yard. Perhaps that dog is terrified of the leash and will bite you. So we need you to have a way of letting the dog outside. So there are reasons for the requirements for each dog. Each rescue, again, is different, but this is particularly for us. So just patience all the way around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we applied for a dog. He was up in Virginia Beach, had a wheelchair, couldn't go to the bathroom by himself, and had constant seizures. Poor guy. He was like 6 years old. And I got turned down immediately and I got frustrated, but she said, you travel too much and he has a wheelchair. You have to help him go to the bathroom every single time he goes. And she gave me the whole list and I was able to sit back and be like, you know what? You're right. That dog can't fly in an airplane. He's not going to do well in a 12-hour car ride. So it made sense that rescue turned me down. I could have handled him, but I totally understand why, because I don't think that dog would have been as comfortable with us as he could be with someone who's retired and home.
And they're trying to look for
Right.
the best fit, and not that you wouldn't be a great candidate, but they're just trying to look that something wouldn't be stressful on that dog as well.
Right. So how can the listeners help Papillon Pals? What needs do you guys have right now?
Well, we always have financial needs. And some of the great things that Facebook is doing is you can pick us for a birthday charity. It's great. So instead of your friends sending you another candle or a picture frame that you really don't need, they can donate $5 or $10, and that really adds up. Another thing is a lot of us are Amazon shoppers, especially being stuck at home for so long. There's a thing called Amazon Smile. You can go to it. You can pick any charity that's on there, and 0.05% of your purchase price gets donated from Amazon quarterly to that charity you chose. There's also charity wish lists that some charities can make, and you can go directly to that and buy the items that they might need. Some of you have really creative minds. Help us come up with fundraising ideas that haven't been done before. Maybe you're crafty. You can make blankets that fit into their little crates, or belly bands, or some other little cute things that we can put out there to receive donations for. Volunteering for, giving us some of your skills for website design. Things like that are wonderful. And finally, fosters. If you can even foster for just a little bit of time, especially if you're skilled in behavioral cases. I know I have one little guy that I need to see how he would do out of a home with multiple dogs. So just little things, little bit of time, sharing posts, if anything else, sharing our posts to get their word out and get their stories seen. That helps us a lot.
Where can people find Papillon Pals?
You can Google Papillon Rescue, and you can find our website, papillonpalsrescue.com. Facebook, it's Papillon Pals Rescue, and Instagram is Papillon Pals. But note, I'm not really good at Instagram yet, so I'm still trying to figure that out. So I might hashtag the dickens out of it because I don't know what I'm doing.
All right. Well, we are going to go work with some dogs now. And Tami, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for tuning in to the Canine Culture Podcast. Please make sure you subscribe to the Canine Culture Podcast on your favorite podcast platform, and make sure you're following us on social media. If you have any recommendations, any topics that you'd like to hear, if you know of any guests that would be good for the show, or if you yourself want to be a guest, please reach out to us. Send us an email at canineculturepodcast@gmail.com, or send us a direct message on social media. Thank you for listening, and please share this with any of your dog-loving friends.